This looks like it has some authority, and we're presenting to people at the company, and so um, you know, I particularly like it. So what I want you to do is if you're following along, you can go ahead and save this presentation. I'm going to go ahead and select Save As because I want to save it as a different presentation, and I'm just going to save it Sections Demo and go ahead and save it. And I'm doing that so you can see the finished product, and I'll put that in Canvas for you to compare it to what you see if you're working along with me. Okay, we're almost done. Now this on slide 1 is a good example of when you might want to customize something. This is our main title, presentation title slide. If we wanted to know what type of slide this is, we could go back to home, and then if we click this drop down, what that shows us are the slide templates that are included in this Ion theme. And we can see that right now this is the title slide. There's title and content, which is the second slide. And if we click on it, it would immediately change it, right? That's not something we want to do because this is our title slide. But these little thumbnails give you an example of the type of slides that you might utilize in your presentation. So this is a title slide, but I'm going to customize this thing here. First of all, I want to make it a little bit bigger. So I'm going to make it about 28 point. Because how big is this title above it? Well, to figure that out, click on the text box and we can see that it's 72 point, right? And so I like this and I want it to be a little bit, you know, bigger, but it's kind of a tagline. And so, and I want it to be legible. So I'm going to make it kind of a light gray, right? Which is the color built into the theme. And that way it stands out, right? And it's uppercase, and that's kind of a issue. And so I can click on this button here, and if I wanted to, I could convert it to lowercase, right? Or sentence case, or capitalize each word, right? Which is really what I want, because there's no reason to keep it uppercase because uppercase slows down the reading, and plus the main title is capitalizing each word. So I'm going to opt for that. I could have also done that by clicking on what I call the More button, and it opens up this dialog and it gives us the option to change it. We can also adjust the character spacing, but we don't need to do that. This is pretty good. So there that's an example of when you might want to fine tune the text. And so now let's save our work. And then one thing you might do in your presentations is you might spend some time in the sorter view looking at the logic and the order. And so what it sounds like is this thing is prescribing a project process. The first one is gather information, then gather information, continue. You know, that's all really cool. Like looking at this too, like gathering. These are like duplicate slides, and I might be nitpicking, but you know, um, really I would want these slides to be titled with their topics. So, like for example, if we look at slide number 4, it's saying gather information, and then what you're doing is you're taking questions for teams. So really what I would want to do is organize this presentation so this information is better chunked. And I would probably want to change the title of this thing to questions for teams, right? And so um, let's do this. Go back to the sorter view and then click on this first slide. And what I want to do is insert a new slide. But I don't want a title slide. I want a section header. Because what that's going to do is it's basically going to somewhere in the presentation mark off logically what I'm talking about. So let's click and add that section header. And it added it after gathering information because slide 4 is what I had selected. But I want it to be before that. So I'll click and reorder it, click and drag and reorder it, then double click, and then I'll type gather information. And so now if we go back to the sorter view, we can see that when I'm presenting, I can talk about the process. And the first step is gather information. So this becomes an organizational graphic for the folks that are viewing my presentation. And then I walk through each of these phases. And as I talk about them, I introduce this section slide to kind of segment the information or to chunk the information. So you're learning a lot about tips for organizing the information and also using PowerPoint. And so since I have a slide called gather information, right, then what I probably want to do is edit these, right, and then change the title here. So I would probably change this actually to questions for team leaders. And then instead of this saying question for team leaders, I would say ask team leaders the following. Boom. Right? And in the next slide, so I'm editing the text boxes. The next slide would be questions for department reps, right? Well, I don't need to type that. I could really just copy this. So right click and you can copy it. And then what we're going to do is we're going to paste it. But what we're going to do is we're going to take a look at the paste options. This paste option pastes the text using the destination theme or keeping the source formatting. We're not using a picture, or keeping text only. And it looks exactly the same as if we were pasting using the destination theme. But if it were a different font, it would actually be, if we were using this option, it would go in using the font that we copied from, like if we were copying from Word or some other document. But let's just use destination theme, right? All right. So what I would then type here is ask reps the following. And since there's a little bit of hierarchy here, I might want to make this just a little bit bigger. Maybe make that 24 point because then it stands out. So to format the text, how do I do that? Click and drag and select the text. Go to the Home tab under Font, and then I can change the font size. So now it's standing out. And if we look in the sorter view, what that does is we can see we have a slide to introduce the section. We change the headings so that they make more sense, and it helps people organize the information because this slide talks about questions for team leaders, and this one talks about questions for reps, right? Okay, there might be another slide that we want to insert here because the next step, if we're looking at this slide, is to set up the team. And that's fine. But there's probably something that I would want to do before I set up the team, and it's not in this process. But we're not going to edit the smart art. I might, if it were me, I might want to get buy-in because this is a corporate type of service project. So I would probably want to get some buy-in from executive management, right? And so why don't we do that? If we want to insert a new slide, we can insert it here from this view. But if we're in the sorter view, we can click in between the slides. See here, I've selected this slide. This is where I want to insert the slide. And so what I want to do is insert a new slide, and I want to insert title and content. Now I'll double click and I'll edit on this slide. Okay. And then what I might, just for fun, is let's just title this thing Getting Buy-in. management, because that's important when we work on projects, right? And so one of the things that I might want to do is complete the following. So when I press return, it added another bullet, right? But I want to kind of slightly indent them. So we right here on the paragraph group, we can click this button to indent, right? Or if I'm going to control Z, the other way to do it is to press the tab key on your keyboard. And so what I might want to do is actually, what I wanted this to say is not complete the following. I wanted this to say contact and brief upper management. And then tab to indent. And so I wanted to mention the goals and scope of the project and agree to concrete measures for success and support. And I'll tab again. And some examples of those things are funding, time off for committee members. I'm typing sideways. And recognition. So this is an example of where you're looking at your presentation and you're fine-tuning it. We inserted a new slide, and in between slide 6 and what was 7. And so now we have an additional slide. Now it could affect the slide overall, like I might come back here and then add another box here to represent the process, but we're not covering smart art for the purposes of this presentation. And so the last thing that I wanted to talk about is word art. And word art is pretty cool, but it could be kind of an annoyance as well. And so be careful when you use it. Use it for the right reasons. So to insert word art, let's just experiment here on this slide. And you click the Insert tab, and then in the text group, there is a text box which is covered in the reading. It's very simple to use, so I'm not going to cover it. This video is getting long enough. And then Insert Word Art. When you click the drop down arrow, it gives you a sample of basically the styles of word art that are available for this particular theme. So these styles vary. So as you can see, it gives you an example of the letter A and the different styles. And as you hover, if you hover long enough, it'll describe the style. So it's white, text color with a drop shadow, blue accent color with a drop shadow, accent color with the turquoise accent color too. Some of these things don't really make a lot of sense when you read them. They get pretty cryptic in the description of the styles. So you kind of have to just look at the different styles and select the one you want. So if there were any reason why you'd want to add some word art, maybe as a attention getter, right? Like for example, maybe you want to use something like this particular funky one, which is a good example of what not to do. Is it opens when you click and select it, you get a text box, and maybe I want to type in here, info is king. This is the kind of ostentatious stuff people do. And see what it does is it gives you the word art. And what's cool about it is we can do things like rotate it and position it, right? So maybe you want to do something like that, right? And if I wanted to change it, like I don't particularly like that, I could maybe opt to use this style, right? That's pretty cool. We have the option then of changing the color more. We can change other features, um, change the shadowing, add a reflection. And this is where it gets crazy because this is what people do. And so it becomes like a creative experience for people who develop their presentations, and I see them do all kinds of crazy things with it, like using 3D rotation and stuff like that. So, you know, word art is cool, but it it you know, use it sparingly and only use it for the right reasons, right? Because here it's kind of redundant, right? But you may have noticed that while we're working in word art, what it did is it opened up a contextual tab. And we were working in insert, but then when we added the text, it opened up the format tab. And so that's what can be confusing about PowerPoint and Word, Microsoft Word and Excel, is this ribbon will change. Because watch what happens when I deselect the word art. That thing disappears. And when I click it again, it reappears. So, and what's really cool, oh, it promotes me to Dr. Curtis Pembroke, and I'm still writing my lifetime dissertation. Cool. Okay, so, yeah, I'm saying right here, see, it says Dr. Curtis Pembroke. All right, so enough of my jokes. So, we've taken a look at adding and slides, and if you want to delete them, you can delete them from the sorter view or from the normal view just by simply clicking on a slide and pressing your delete key. But we don't want to do that, right? We want to undo that. And we talked about applying themes and the background, and we've entered lots of text on the slide. And lastly, we added the word art. And so this is a really long but yet succinct review of what's covered in the chapter. For the lab, what you need to do is create a simple presentation, 3 to 5 slides. I want you to include a title slide and then several slides with body text. No images are required, so don't get ahead of yourself. Select a theme that you like and utilize the theme. So for example, you can create a simple presentation that's something like about me or my favorite foods or a presentation about your favorite movies. Make your presentation fun and save it for the lab and upload it to Canvas. If you have any questions, post your questions on the questions forum.